It is a good time to be a Lord of the Rings fan right now, as you might remember that last year in February they did announce that multiple movies based on Tolkien's work was on the way, and the first one that was announced and that drops on December 13th is the animated movie called The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim, which is set 200 years before the events of The Hobbit. But in a recent earnings call, Warner Bros. Revealed that the first batch of new live-action Lord of the Rings movies will arrive in 2026 with a movie focused around Gollum, and the working title is Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum. And the amazing news surrounding this movie is first of all that the Oscar-winning trio behind the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, are all returning to produce this movie. Peter Jackson is no longer directing the movie like he did in The Lord of the Rings, but in fact Andy Serkis is doing that. He's also of course reprising Gollum, and even though Andy Serkis might mostly be known for his acting, he has actually directed the second unit of the Hobbit movies, Venom 2 and Mowgli, so he's not only a talented actor, but a director too. On top of that, he's also narrated the new book versions of Lord of the Rings, Hobbit and the Silmarillion, so he's really been dug deep into the Lord of the Rings universe, and I'm honestly so excited to see him back, both reprising his role as Gollum, maybe he will finally get that Oscar he deserves, and directing the movie as well. Some other noticeable people involved are Phoebe Gittins and Artie Papagiorgio, I'm sorry if I butchered those names, who are also both the War of Rohirrim screenwriters. Unfortunately, Andrew Lesnie, the director of photography for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, will not be making a return as he passed away in 2015. We also got a couple of nice quotes from the people involved, such as from Andy Serkis, who said the following: "Yes, precious. The time has come once more to venture into the unknown with my dear friends, the extraordinary and incomparable guardians of Middle-earth, Peter, Fran and Philippa, with Mike and Pam and the Warner Bros. Team on the quest as well, alongside Weta and our filmmaking family in New Zealand. It's just all too delicious." And Jackson, Walsh and Boyens then added, saying it is an honor and a privilege to travel back to Middle-earth with our good friend and collaborator Andy Serkis, who has unfinished business with that stinker Gollum. As lifelong fans of Professor Tolkien's vast mythology, we are proud to be working with Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdi and the entire team at Warner Bros. On another epic adventure. So overall, this sounds like it could be a fantastic movie, to be completely honest, but beyond this we don't really have any other actors or characters confirmed for the movie, so all we can do at that point is speculate. But there's actually a lot we can guess from this, and considering they've followed the books fairly accurately in the past, obviously skipping out on some characters and adding some new, we can still get a bit of an idea of what this movie is gonna be about. In short, the movie is most likely gonna be set between these two scenes in the Fellowship of the Ring, when Gandalf leaves Frodo with the ring to research about it.
Keep it secret. Keep it secret.
And then his pretty dramatic return. In the movie, this kind of seems like it's a couple of weeks, as he just travels to Minas Tirith to read about the ring and then returns, but in the book 17 years actually pass between these two scenes. And during this time, Gandalf seeks out Aragorn to help him hunt down Gollum, and they spend many years looking for him across multiple places in Middle-earth, such as the Anduin, Mirkwood and even the confines of Mordor. At this point, Gandalf didn't know that Gollum had already been captured by Sauron and tortured for a whole 8 years, which is also what you can see in the movie when it reveals the words Shire and Baggins. After these 8 years, he was actually finally set free, at which point Aragorn catches him on the outskirts of the Dead Marshes. He then delivers Gollum to Thranduil in Mirkwood, where Gandalf interrogates him and gets a few scarce details out of him. A bit later the same year, orcs actually raid Mirkwood in a coordinated attack, which allows Gollum to escape, after which he heads to Moria and hides there until the events of the Fellowship of the Ring happens. So I think something surrounding this is what the movie is going to focus on. Obviously 17 years is a lot, and there's a lot of events that they could portray in this movie, as well as a lot of characters and locations. But I think it's a pretty safe bet that on top of Gollum, we will also be seeing Aragorn and Gandalf in the movie, and potentially Thranduil too. Another big question that has been discussed is whether or not they should recast or de-age the characters in the movies. I personally lean more towards de-aging, as recasting the characters set in the same time span would be a little bit strange. And Viggo Viggo Mortensen was 40 years old during The Lord of the Rings and is 65 now and still looks really healthy. We can see him in the latest trailer of The Dead Don't Hurt.
So where are you from? Vivienne Lecoudi.
It's a very long story.
I have plenty of time.
You live like a dog.
A happy dog. You have to tell me where you want me to plant your trees.
You're still a dog.
And I honestly think that if he just dyed his hair and shaved off his beard, had some good makeup, they wouldn't actually need that much de-aging to make him look a bit like he did in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Ian McKellen is 84 years old, and I think visually it wouldn't really be a problem to have him in the movie considering Gandalf is supposed to look old, but the question is if he's too old to actually perform most of the acting. But if he's only gonna be in a few scenes like the interrogation in Mirkwood, it might still work. Christopher Lee was actually 77 years old during the filming of The Lord of the Rings, so Ian McKellen is significantly older than that, being at 84. But keep in mind that Christopher Lee was even in the Hobbit movies, at which point he was like 90 plus years old, even though he didn't have too many scenes, and that was all filmed in a green screen room where he lived, and ideally you can get the actors out on the actual set to film these scenes. Thranduil, played by Lee Pace, and potentially also a Legolas cameo with Orlando Bloom, I don't think that's very unlikely at all. But I do feel like they either cast all of these characters with the old actors or all of them with new actors. The weird thing to me would be if they decided to mix them all together, but I really hope we can see a return of all of these characters. With this announcement, Warner Bros. For some reason also decided to take down the Hunt for Gollum fan film released in 2009 with over 15 million views from YouTube, which caused a huge backlash from the community, but they quickly reinstated it luckily, which I think was a good move.
What had it got in its pockets? Should have squeezed it.
Why it was removed in the first place might have been a mistake, I'm not sure, but at least it gave the fan film a new well-deserved boost of attention. But the interesting part is that Peter Jackson actually signed on to do another film too, and the question is, what could this one be about? Personally, I think the war in the north would be a good bet for this, because during the events of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Sauron did besiege the north with armies attacking both Thranduil in Mirkwood, Galadriel in Lothlorien, and the biggest siege was on the dwarves in Erebor. So to see this on the big screen with the same quality as the Lord of the Rings trilogy would be amazing in my opinion, and it could be directly referring to stuff happening in that trilogy, which I think could work really well. Overall, there's a lot of good things to look forward to as a Middle-earth fan. Rings of Power Season 2 also had its first trailer release very recently, and we'll have a separate video out covering that. But we're also planning to do a bit more of a cinematic video showcasing exactly what Gollum, Gandalf and Aragorn were up to during this period, to kind of give us all a little bit of a teaser of what the full movie could be about. So if this is something you would like to see, please let us know in the comments below. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe for all things Middle-earth. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.